Let's talk some football for a second, guys. Yesterday,
for only a second, Mike? Only a second we're talking about football?
No, we're going to talk about 20 minutes here. But you sent me a clip yesterday from Greg Cosell.
Yes.
And we were unable to play it because Social News Desk is a fraud. It's a terrible system, and I will continue to absolutely berate them on air until they fix the crap that they've sold us.
Yeah. Send them this clip.
I will.
Okay.
Because you know what? I had to download it off Twitter and upload it because your stupid system wouldn't play it through the system yesterday.
Yeah. Wow,
but
you're
it's a
hot over
perfect
this.
lead-in to the rest of the topic. So this is Greg Cosell on Cam Ward, which is going to lead us into the second part of the topic. But this is Greg Cosell on Cam Ward from the Ross Tucker podcast.
I would say the one guy that jumped out to me in that way is Cam Ward. Cam Ward has higher-level quarterback traits. I mean, he's got a live arm. He's got a playmaking dimension. He can work efficiently from the pocket to all three levels of the defense. He can throw with velocity. He can throw with touch. He's got arm strength. He can layer throws. He can make plays outside of structure clearly. We saw that a whole lot. Now, there was a looseness and lack of discipline at times to his game. I'm not a coach. I'm never sure how coaches deal with that, Ross. And I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, so I don't want people to think that this is a direct comparison. But I remember when Mahomes came out, there was a big concern about that with him, that there was kind of a recklessness to his game in college, and there were a lot of people that were concerned about it. It's why he was not the first pick in the draft. And obviously we know what's happened since. But, so I think there's always a fine line there. I'm not sure how you channel that as a coach. But to me, Ward would be the quarterback that, if I had to make a list, would be quarterback one.
So before we get to the recent mock draft updates, Bull, you sent me the clip yesterday. What's your reaction to Greg Cosell giving some praise here to Cam?
Well, I think it's interesting, and who knows, Greg Cosell doesn't give opinions. Well, I should say he doesn't. He looks at the facts, looks at the tape, and then tells you what he sees. He's not going to say, well, I think this guy's going to be a great quarterback. He talks about traits and things he sees, and he's better at doing that than anybody else that I've heard.
He's top shelf.
He's the best.
Yep.
So there's been a lot of what I would call groupthink on the quarterbacks to this point, with people saying that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are, you keep hearing, they'd be drafted after all 6 of the guys from last year. Well, based on what Greg Cosell's saying, I would say that's not true, at least about Cam Ward. I don't know about Shedeur Sanders. I also watched something from the Dominique Foxworthy show. He had some draft guy, I think, who played in the NFL. I can't think of his name. But he also said that he thinks Cam Ward, if he was in last year's draft, he said would have been the 4th quarterback taken ahead of J.J. McCarthy. So I was already in favor of the Browns taking a quarterback. And like I said, I trust Greg Cosell more than anybody on this stuff. So to me, if I'm the Browns, I'm doing whatever it takes to get Cam Ward now at this point.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, just off Greg Cosell.
Well, I already wanted a quarterback. Yeah. And if Cosell's saying there's a clear difference, he knows better than me. If he's saying there's a clear difference between the two, then I'm going to go with Cosell to break the tie for me.
Yeah, we sort of go back years. Cosell, I met him years ago at NFL Films before I even started working with you at the Fan. And,
right.
And I actually got to break down film with him. And, dude, the guy
be
is
amazing.
so
amazing.
This was in 2011.
Very good.
He has an office right there at NFL Films, and he has access to every single tape of everything.
And works his tail off.
Oh, my God. It's just,
and takes the emotion. Like,
there's
most of us have emotion involved in these things.
Yeah.
He has no emotion involved in this. None.
He can watch Shedeur Sanders play on film and not even think about Deion Sanders.
No, right.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I like his take on Cam Ward. I've been a Cam Ward fan, more so him than Shedeur all year. In fact, we go back to when we had Bernie on mid-season talking about Cam. And
Bernie loves Cam.
Yeah, he's a you guy, so you matter.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, I respect Cosell as much as anybody, and that just reaffirms what I think, that he should be the quarterback the Browns take. Now the question is, will he be there at 2? I don't. That's risky.
Bull, help me on this. The year Achilles Smith came out, who was the other quarterback?
Who was?
It's a big. It wasn't as big as Leaf or
Was it
Manning,
Couch?
but it was Achilles Smith.
Wasn't
If
that
you
the
would,
same
the
year as
Bengals
Couch?
took him.
Same year's Couch, right?
It may be.
It was Tim
I think it was
Couch.
99. Yeah.
So I remember distinctly hearing Achilles Smith being mentioned by a lot of draft gurus.
Yeah.
He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. Now,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, I'd forgotten that it was Tim Couch.
Yeah.
Neither guy ended up being the guy.
Right.
And that's entirely possible what we could be looking at
Of course.
this year. So,
Although Donovan McNabb was drafted in that draft.
well, we talked about
Yeah.
there's always one nugget.
Almost
There's
always,
always
yeah.
a quarterback, like even the 2022
With
draft.
Purdy, yeah.
Brock Purdy, who was the last player taken in the entire draft,
Yeah.
he ended up being the best quarterback.
Right.
Odd, but it happens.
Yeah.
If you go back and you look, and this is a fascinating thing to do, I haven't done it recently, but I used to do it a lot. I would go back and slot the quarterbacks that were selected in any given year, 1995. Just go back and look at them. And now that we have the benefit of the results, it's fun to look at that. I used to like to do the same thing with college recruiting. Wow, this guy was the #1 overall recruit. This guy didn't even finish college. Wildly off base. And a lot of different opinions. You get a lot of different things. Because there is no consensus, and I think we can safely say this is one of those drafts. This is Achilles Smith and Tim Couch. It's also Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning. Now, in that draft, there was one colossal bust and one all-time great. And that's the one that's most fascinating to me is, wow, how could all of these experts be 50-50 split right down the middle? I mean, I think they got the cover of Sports Illustrated before the draft. Like, nobody knew who the better quarterback was going to be. The consensus on this draft is there isn't a consensus. There isn't a slam dunk. And because of that, and because of how valuable this #2 pick is, I don't want a dice roll. I don't want, 50% said this guy and 50% said this guy. I wish, it didn't work out that way, I wish this was a Joe Burrow draft.
Right.
But it's not.
But what I would say, though, Jay, is it's 50-50 from people who do this for a living, mock drafters. And, we don't know what the coaches and scouts feel.
No, we don't. There will be one.
Yeah.
The Browns will come down on one side or the other. Even if they don't take a quarterback,
Sure.
they're evaluating them, and they're still going to grade one player higher than the other. The only thing, I'm just trying to minimize damage here. As a Browns fan, I'm done trying to swing for the fences because we strike out when we do that. I think you would agree with that. We've swung for the fences a lot. We've swung for the fences as much as any organization with the draft because we've had so much draft capital. We've struck out a lot. At this point, I'm trying to change the course of history. I want different results with this draft than we've had in past drafts. So for me, I got to take the dice roll out of the equation, and I have to go with the most certain thing. There's never a lock sure thing. Abdul Carter could end up being the second coming of Myles Garrett. He could end up being out of football in 2 years. Anymore, nothing is going to shock me. Right. But the one thing that I'm hearing from most of these draft experts is they all seem to agree that this guy is going to change lives at the NFL.
Well, Jay,
go ahead.
On that point, the latest round of mock drafts, and all these sites are updating them almost weekly, some daily.
Right.
The two most recent ones I found were from CBS, Josh Edwards at CBS,
Yep.
and Daniel Jeremiah. And I want to show you those two real quick because it plays into what you just said.
I love Daniel Jeremiah,
and
by
what
the
we
way.
heard. If you get him on the show, we would love to have Daniel Jeremiah.
I
on the
will
show.
do that. Daniel
I'm
Jeremiah.
buddies with him, too.
We
Yeah.
work together at ESPN. He's a
Put
great
us on
guy.
group text. We'll get him on.
Absolutely get Daniel
Deal.
Jeremiah on
That's
the show
easy. We-
before
yeah.
the draft.
But
Oh,
these
yeah.
last two mock drafts out within the last 24 hours, Steve, let's take 266 full. This is from Josh Edwards of CBS. To your point, Jay, the surefire can't miss guy, at least on paper.
Yeah.
Carter at 1 to Tennessee. Cam Ward, first time we've really seen Cam Ward mocked to the Browns. First
Yeah,
time
that's
CBS
interesting.
has mocked Ward to the Browns. In this instance from Josh Edwards, he had Shedeur Sanders going 3, Travis Hunter going 4, and Mason Graham going 5. And now here's Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, Jay. Same thing, Tennessee. And his point for picking Abdul Carter, Tennessee, was new GM, can't miss. I want to go with the safest prospect I think can make a difference.
Yeah.
That's Abdul Carter. But he also had, look at number 2 there, Cam Ward going to the Browns.
Yeah.
I find it just a little interesting that Greg Cosell says that in the same day that clip with Greg Cosell
Where
comes
does
out.
Jeremiah have Shedeur, by the way?
6. Literally
Okay.
the pick right
All
after.
right.
I
the
think
Raiders.
if a GM makes a decision and he says, well, this is the safest guy, I would immediately fire him if I was the owner of the team.
Yeah, not me.
because I'm not in the business of being safe.
You know
I'm in
what
the
will get
business
him
of winning.
immediately fired? Drafting one of these quarterbacks and they flop.
No, because
No, he's gone. That's career ending.
well,
I don't even know that another team
the
would hire
Browns
him as
made
a
the
general
worst
manager.
trade in the history of football, and they haven't fired their
Yeah.
GM yet.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
This GM is
Yeah.
coming off a grade of D-, ranked 32nd out of all the draft classes.
Yeah.
His most recent body of work was a D-, ranked 32nd.
Right, but Jay,
he's got no honeymoon or collateral
You know what
left.
also is going to get him fired? If he doesn't win. And drafting
Yes.
Abdul Carter is not going to help them win next year.
Well, here's what I want fans to realize.
Yeah.
Drafting one player is not likely to turn this franchise on a pivot anyhow.
Yes, it is.
If you get it
If you get it
exactly right.
Only at quarterback.
And here's how you get it exactly right.
Yeah.
Washington got it exactly right last year. By the way, which team had the best draft last year? Washington. And not just with their quarterback.
Right, but the rest
they
of it doesn't
hit
matter.
everywhere.
If they hadn't hit on Jaden Daniels, the rest of it wouldn't have mattered. They would have been bad.
Bull, they would have been bad, but they would have been better than they were the year before.
But
he didn't improve them 10 wins.
He did most of the
a lot of
improvement.
it.
He
A lot
did
of
a
those,
ton
yeah.
of it. But
Yeah.
to discount, like, is a quarterback worth plus 10 in one season?
No, but
no
other player is worth anything. It's worth more than one.
I'm not going to argue with you
Yeah.
on that. I agree.
He was worth a touchdown a game.
You damn well better
spread,
get
I
the
promise you
quarterback
that
right.
much.
But here's what I'm saying. I do think it's a mathematical equation. You can't miss. You cannot be wrong. And based on that thesis statement, if you can't be wrong, this is causal. There's cause and effect to this. If you can't be wrong, you better take the guy that you believe is the surest bet.
Are you talking about
regardless
this
of position?
specific situation with the Browns?
Yes.
Guys are going to get fired?
Well, yeah, because this situation is very different. If you're a
because-
new GM, take a risk.
Because in the NFL now, it's not like it used to be. It's not as punitive if you blow it on the quarterback because you didn't pay them crazy money like you used to.
I agree with that. However,
Yeah.
this guy's at the end of the rope.
Well, that's true, but he's going to get fired. Yes, if they draft a quarterback and that quarterback's not good, he's going to get fired.
Yes.
But if they draft a defensive lineman, even if that defensive lineman's good and they still win 3 games, he's still going to get fired.
Here's the thing. With the best defensive lineman in football last year, they won 3 games.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That shows you the importance of the position.
If I'm betting on myself,
Yeah.
I'm going to say, I'm going to run this back, and I'm going to run it back. I'm going to get a quarterback. I mean, we can't act like we're not going to get a quarterback. They're probably going to draft 2. But they're going to get new quarterback blood in here next year. I'm willing to bet on myself that I'm going to get enough positions right in the draft and perhaps free agency that the players that I bring in here are going to, and I'm willing to run it back, we're not going to win 3 games next year. We're going to improve. Now, what's the number in your mind? Like, how does Andrew Berry keep his job? 7 wins?
I don't know.
There's no number. There's no
Yeah,
number.
I
You
don't
know
know
it when you see it, right?
You have
Yes.
to watch the team, and you have to see a quarterback play that looks.
I
confident.
agree with that.
Right.
I agree with
And
that.
if-
And I do
and
think
if
quarterback
he-
play
if
is a
they
big
could
part of
win
it.
3
But-
games next
but if he
year,
drafts
and
him-
we could feel really good about
can-
the prospects of 20.
They have to be trending in the right direction
Yes,
heading to
there's
26.
a good 3-win season. Not
Yeah.
really. There's a better 3-win season than the one we had. Here's how I think he gets it right. I think it's more important that he hits on whatever quarterback he takes. And the expectations are wildly different. If you take Will Howard, Dart, whoever, if you take someone that's not the 2, there's different expectations and I think different levels of accountability. He might take a quarterback in the 2nd round who comes in here next year and does what Bo Nix did in Denver last year. It's not outside the realm of possibility. It's a long shot, but it's happened. I think if you draft Abdul Carter, the guy that you most believe is going to be in this league for a decade and have an impact, you've solidified a position that, by the way, is now likely your weakest position if you trade Myles Garrett.
So 2 things I would say to that. Number 1 is that if you draft, like, obviously most of the good quarterbacks in the league were drafted in the 1st round. So you talk about the numbers, the odds will tell you.
You're speaking for me right now, too, by the way.
You're going to get a quarterback. You're more likely to get a good quarterback in the 1st
Well,
round.
absolutely.
Right? But to me, this is very simple. I don't care about what the mock drafters say, right? Here's what's simple. It comes down to Andrew Berry. Now, it's hard to trust him because he hasn't done a particularly good job. But ultimately, he's the guy making the decision. Okay?
We think.
I'm going to go with that. He's making the decision.
He should be making the decision.
Right? If Andrew Berry has to say one thing about Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Are these guys, one or both of them, a top 10, 15 player in this draft? A true first? Are they worthy of being drafted in the first round?
Right.
If Andrew Berry's answer is yes, then it's a no-brainer. You take him at 2.
So,
even if you think Abdul Carter's going to be better, if you think Cam Ward is, you know what? Abdul Carter's the best player in the draft. If I'm Andrew Berry, and I'm like, you know what? Abdul Carter's clearly the best player in the draft. But you know what? Cam Ward's the 6th or 7th best player in this draft. He's a first-round pick. We have to take him because the position.
So you don't really make a distinction, and this is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just asking this as a question.
Yes.
I'm not judging it.
Yeah.
You don't make a distinction as front of the first round, back of the first round. He could have a back of the first round grade, and you still would take him.
Well,
so
go ahead.
Because you might be able to get that guy at 33.
Sure, you could potentially. You could always get a guy if he falls to you, whatever. But we're talking about the most important position, so I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, Adam.
Yeah.
But like I look at quarterbacks and say, if I've got a top pick and the Browns do it number 2, if there's one quarterback that you have a first round grade on that you think can be a franchise quarterback, it doesn't matter where you take him.
That's
I
right.
would take him at 2 if you have him as the 28th best player in the draft, because I don't want to flub around with risking losing that guy.
Isn't that overreaching?
well,
though?
but to Dustin's
why not
point,
trade back and get him at 15?
But Jay, let me just say this. To Dustin's point, most teams, when we hear teams say this all the time, there's not usually 30 guys with a first-round grade. There's usually like 15 to 20 guys that get a first-round grade.
There's got to be 32 picks, though.
Right. No, I hear you.
Right.
But a lot of times the guys being drafted in the bottom 10, a lot of people will have them on their board as a second-round grade.
Absolutely.
So
Of
if
course.
you think Cam Ward is a first-round grade, that means you most likely think he's a top 15 player in this draft. And if you have now, you tell me if the Browns are 100% confident they could trade down a couple of spots and still get him, I'll live with it. They better get it right. They better not screw it
if
up.
you trade back, you better get him.
But if I'm convinced that Cam Ward, and I'm not saying I am not an expert on college quarterbacks. I haven't seen Cam Ward play enough. But Greg Cosell was eye-opening, and if Andrew Berry says Cam Ward is clearly one of the 10 best players in this draft, he may not be quite as good as 2 or 3 other guys, but it's the most important position. I've got to take him. And if he doesn't feel that way, if he's saying, you know, Cam and Shedeur, they're all right, but they're not first-round grade players, then don't take them. Of course not.
Right.
That's ultimately up to Berry, and to me, that makes it easy. If they are, you take them.
So
if
you
they're
guys
not, you
are
don't.
kind of throwing out the window, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You're throwing out the window best available player. No, not here.
I believe in best available player
If
for
it's not
everything
quarterback.
else but quarterback.
Okay. Well, no. Hey, that's a philosophy.
We align. One of the few things we align in life about is this philosophy on quarterbacks and kickers. Now, I've got you on team no kicker drafting. And
Yeah,
the whole
that's
thing.
true.
But no, in all seriousness, teams trade up for quarterbacks. You don't trade down for quarterbacks. If you want your guy, I don't want to deal with the risk of saying, oh man, the value's a little better. Could we go to number 7 or? Dude, if you would trade down and think you're still going to get him, you take him at 2 right now, and you don't worry about it, and you don't say, man, it would have been nice to have that extra 3rd round pick. No, you got your quarterback.
I don't mean to kill our old buddy Darryl Ryder. Darryl, I love him. But I got to kill him again.
You kill Darryl every show.
I got to kill you again, Darryl.
Don't make it seem like you feel bad about it.
Because this is insane. Darryl was on our old show, co-hosting with Jonathan Peterlin, and said he would not take either of the quarterbacks at 2, but if the Browns traded down to 6, that he would take them. That blew my mind. That's insane.
But that's a dance that you don't want to make, because you can look at the teams that are supposed to pick 3, 4, 5, and 6 and say, well, this one's not going to take a quarterback. They've got one. Well, they could easily trade that.
That's right.
And so that is a dangerous game
but it's
to play.
crazy, because if you think his point was, well, he's good value at 6 and not good value at 2.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
I would disagree with that. And I love
Sorry, Darryl. I'll stop picking on you.
Darryl, you know what I think of you. I think Darryl's a great guy. He does a great job. And look, here's the other thing. We should really hold our powder, because the one thing I have learned about covering the draft for 37 years is that this is far from a science. If this was a science, Ryan Leaf hits. If this was a science, Tim Couch and Akil, those are 2 guys that went 1-2 and neither made it. It's possible.
Who was the quarterback the Browns took a few picks ahead of Tom Brady?
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Oh, this
They
gives me a
took a
stomachache every
quarterback in
time.
that 6th
I
round.
know.
Or
Wasn't
maybe
it
it was the
Spurgeon
5th
win?
round.
I think it
Might
was
have been
Spurgeon
win.
I think it was Spurgeon win.
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
It was in the 2000 draft.
Oh, this gives me an
Browns-
upset stomach every time.
And obviously the Browns had already drafted Tim Couch, so you know, but still.
It was Spurgeon win with
Spurgeon.
the 183rd pick in
Wow.
the 6th round.
And Brady was like 199.
Brady
Yeah.
was 199. He was the next quarterback taken.
Oh,
So Spurgeon win, and the
So,
next quarterback taken.
it's-
Was
So I
Yeah.
just bring that up to say, like, we all speak as if we're on the perch of authority.
Oh yeah, no.
And we're not.
That's why I stopped doing
and you know
that,
what?
yeah.
I also have learned that when you get it wrong, and it's definitively wrong, you just have to come out and say, you know what?
Yep. Screwed
Hey,
it up.
I thought that this would be the way to go. Yesterday, I saw a clip. Somebody had sent me, a Giants fan had sent me, of the reaction, the real-time reaction when they drafted Daniel Jones. And I was with all of them. I was like, what, Daniel Jones?
Yeah, right.
Isn't he a Duke guy? Like, what?
Yeah.
And everybody was going bananas because Josh Allen was sitting there. And so now those...
No, that wasn't the same draft.
I think it was.
No.
Was it?
No.
Josh Allen was there, but it was the pass rusher Josh Allen.
Oh, okay.
Not the
Because in
quarterback,
one of the
Josh
clips, they're
Allen.
like, they could have had Josh. There was another quarterback that was still. That was the Baker draft, right?
No, it was Kyler Murray was
No.
the first pick.
Oh,
Daniel
that was
Jones
the year
the-
after Baker then.
Yes.
Yes.
So who was the quarterback that was taken after Daniel Jones? Do
I'll
we
look it up.
remember
Hold on.
that?
I think Kyler Murray was the best quarterback in that draft, right?
Well, he's coming off
ended
the
up being-
Heisman, and he's probably had the most success.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been great, but he's
had ups and
you know,
downs.
He's solid. He's all
He's
right.
been a lot like Baker if you think about it. He's had some-
Yeah.
Dwayne Haskins, R.I.P. was the.
Yeah,
the
that's
next-
right.
Yeah.
That's why I remember it, because it was Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah.
In the moment,
That was not a
there's-
great
there's
not a
so
great
ma-
quarterback
No, it
draft.
wasn't. In the moment, there's so much real-time reaction where, like, the Jets are going to boo whoever they take. It doesn't matter.
Pretty much.
Whoever they take, they're going
Yeah.
to boo. And this is the one thing, I think I mentioned this on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I've got a lot of feedback from it. A lot of people agreed with this, and I don't know if you guys will. I said that the Browns fan base is the most divided fan base in the entire NFL. And it's something we don't really talk about. Like, how do you measure that? Well, I just look at the way our fans react
You mean
to
in general
movies.
or right now?
In general. Right, like
Okay.
right now.
Okay, yeah,
with
right
the
now.
space and time where we are right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
And the reason that I theorize that is because we've had no success.
Right.
Like, the Jets fan base is unified that whatever the team does sucks.
That's right.
Our fan base is divided in that whatever the team does is perfect, and whatever the team does, regardless of the results, is absolutely awful. And I just say we got to hold our fire.
Yeah.
And I've said this on the show, and I'll say it again. If the Browns take Cam Ward at 2, let's go.
Sure.
Let's go. I'm the biggest Cam Ward fan going. I just want to make sure all the conversations are had prior, that we get this right. Because this organization, more than any in the entire league, cannot get it wrong again. We can't. It's so punitive when we get it wrong, because it's one year after another, after another, after another, after another
Yeah.
getting it wrong.
Yeah.
So it compounds the problem. You're not now 2 years from getting out of it. You're more like 5 or 6 years
Well,
from
I mean,
getting out
all
of
the bad drafting, it has left you in a place where the Browns have very little young talent.
it. Sadly, you're right.
Their best
Yeah.
player under 26 is probably Martin Emerson.
And
Yeah,
he's
that is, yeah.
And what is he? Well,
a-
sometimes he's really
fringe-
good. Sometimes
fringe
he's what is he
starter.
doing
He's an
out there?
okay player.
Yeah, he's a
you know?
mediocre guy.
I mean, Jerry Judy's 26, so
Yeah.
he's still youngish. He's a good receiver.
Well, now that's also a product of trading away 3 first-round draft picks.
Yeah,
like
sure,
when you do that,
you can't get it wrong, and they couldn't get, and they got it more wrong
they got
than
it
you possibly
colossally wrong. Now, one of
That's
the
it.
reasons they were ranked as the 32nd worst
Yeah.
draft class was because they didn't have any
Sure.
first-round capital.
Right.
So,
Pick was 54.
but even when you look at what they ended up with, other teams were hitting on 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys. We
Sure.
got nothing.
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 Now, some of those guys, it's
Early.
You could change. They could change their
Early.
grades down the line.
You're
but,
right. They could.
You know.
But
didn't
please
happen.
don't get this wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to get a little Cavs Knicks preview in here after a quick word